Welcome everybody to the Oak Grove Community Council general meeting for March 23rd, 2022. My name is Joseph Edge. I am the chair of the Oak Grove Community Council. Tonight we're going to have our usual intros and officer reports. We have a featured local business, Milwaukee Pizza Co. And then I'll be talking about the county's housing strategies phase 2 project, which is going to public hearing soon. We'll get a MAPIT update from Valerie, and then ABC's social time. So let's go ahead and get started with introductions from our board of directors. I will stop sharing so we can see everyone's faces. And so again, my name is Joseph Edge. I'm the chair and I live in the River Forest neighborhood. And I'll just ask our board to introduce themselves, their position, and the name of the street they live on. Valerie?
Hi, I'm Valerie Chapman. I'm the vice chair and I live on Evergreen Street, just a block away from the trolley trail.
Danielle?
Danielle Lohman. I live about 4 blocks away from Valerie on Evergreen and 21st. I'm the secretary, by the way.
Jane?
Jane Civiletti, treasurer, and I live on Fair Oaks Ave.
Rich?
Hi, Rich Nepon. I live on off of McCartney Lane, which is 3 blocks south of the Fred Meyers in Oak Grove, and I am an at-large general member of the board.
And Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark Elliott. I'm a general board member and I live on Riesling Road, just off of Concord Road.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and do introductions for everyone here so that we can keep track of attendance. Please say your first and last name and the name of the street that you live on. And I'll just work my way down the list, and please unmute yourself and then mute yourself again when you're done. Anita, you go first.
Hi, I'm Anita Blackmar. I live on Fair Oaks Avenue.
Thank you. Ashley?
I'm Ashley Tutane on Cedar Avenue.
Thank you. Casey?
Hi, yeah, I'm Casey. I live on 26th Avenue.
Chris?
Me? Hello?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm Chris Allen. I'm Milwaukee Pizza Company off McLaughlin Boulevard. I live down in Gladstone.
Thank you. Dave?
Dave Kovac. I live at Rose Villa.
Ed?
You mean me?
Yeah.
I'm just a visitor, Ed Gronke from Jennings Lodge.
Thank you. Fred?
Fred Sawyer. I live on Linden Lane at Oak Grove Boulevard.
Thank you. Jean?
Is that me you called?
Jean, I called first, but while we've got you, Gwen, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Glenn, live on Evergreen at 25th with Valerie.
Thank you. And then Jean.
I'm Gene Fifield. I live on Courtney near River Road.
Thank you. Greg.
Greg Wennison. I live on Oak Grove Boulevard between Fair Oaks and Laurie.
Thank you. Guest. I don't know who guest is.
I'm Pat Callender. I live at Rose Villa.
Awesome. Hi, Pat. We got Gwen, so we got James. So Jenna, you're up next.
Jenna Smith on Fair Oaks Drive, down by the train bridge.
Thank you. Pam.
Yes, I'm Pam Brand. I live at Rose Villa. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul.
Paul Savage, Kronberg Avenue, a couple blocks off Oak Grove Boulevard.
Thank you. Sarah? Oh, we can come back to Sarah if she's not ready. Sue?
Sue Cunahan, and I live at Parkview Circle and River Road.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Suzanne Wolf. I live on Southeast East Avenue.
Thank you. Thelma?
Thelma Hagen Miller. I live on the corner of Southview and Westview, just south of Concord.
Thank you. Tom Civiletti?
Tom Civiletti of Fair Oaks at Oak Grove Boulevard.
Tom Hammond?
We are Tom and Jolene. We live on Viewcrest Drive.
Thank you. And Baldwin?
Baldwin Vanderbilt. I live on Neff Road, almost next to Stringfield Park.
Thank you. And Wayne?
Hi, I'm Wayne Potter. I live at Willamette View on River Ridge Drive.
Thank you and welcome. And then I think I saw Chris Simons. Could you introduce yourself and the name of the street that you live on for attendance?
Yeah, hey, this is Chris Simons. I live in Whipple Avenue. Sorry, I'm a little late to the call. I'm just on another meeting as well, but great to be back again.
Thank you. It's good to see you again. And then let's see, I'll try Sarah one more time. Sarah, could you introduce yourself and the name of the street that you live on, please? Okay, well, maybe we can track her down on chat, Danielle. So,
I
and
did
then
mark
if
her
anyone else
present.
shows up, okay. And then just go ahead and check with chat with anyone else that shows up later. So we will move on to our officer reports now. And up first will be Danielle with the secretary's update.
Oh, sorry, I lost my mute there for a second. Yeah, I just wanted to announce, so I noticed that Tom Civiletti, as I was taking attendance, Tom, you are now a voting member. I have you down for 6 meetings. I didn't notice anyone else turning that corner, but I am going to take a quick look and I'll put in the chat if there's anyone else. And then Jenna Smith, we were able to count you for October, the October board meeting. So you're standing at 5 now. So next meeting, you'll be a voting member. And then if I find anything else right in my notes, I will, we'll get that corrected.
I believe we got our meeting minutes from last month out and then the meeting announcement, right? So are there any corrections for the minutes that went out last month? I haven't received any by email. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Jane, you're up next with the treasurer's report.
Thank you. I am pleased to announce I actually have a treasurer's report this month. Since our last meeting, we have paid the $500 that we had voted to be paid to the Downtown Historic Oak Grove Group for the Trolley Trail Festival. So that is $500 from our treasury. And in the meantime, we have also received $370 in donations from the membership. So that puts us down only another $120 or so of our treasury. So we probably have some money for other expenses. Danielle, that leaves our total at this time at $1,396.18.
Excellent, thank you. And so with that, we'll get into the main part of our program tonight, and that first off is our featured local business, which is Milwaukee Pizza Company. So I'd like to turn it over to Chris Allen to introduce himself and his business. And I believe that we just missed you guys. It was a year ago that we had you as the featured local business, but you were too busy to make it. And so we introduced you for you, but we'd like to give you the chance to do that now. So take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Running a little pizza place, starting off in the restaurant industry, 7 o'clock on a Wednesday was difficult. I think my wife and I were working with one employee at that time, and it was an interesting time last year. So, well, my name's Chris Allen. We opened a pizza place during a pandemic. It's a little crazy. My wife and I, we bought our first house in Oak Grove in 2005. We ended up moving out of there, I think, in 2012. 2013, we moved to Oregon City, and now we're in Gladstone. But I was laid off about, I think, August of 2020, and I quickly I realized that we were going to need to do something to make some money for ourselves, and we decided we're going to open a pizza place. And we found Pat's place just by sheer accident. I mean, we've all watched that little mall grow over the years, and I thought, oh, this can't do it. But we've been able to do pretty good with it so far. It's been fun. So, but we make good pizza, and it's a thin. If you haven't been there, we make a thin crust. We've taken great care to make sure that every ingredient we bring in or every recipe that we put in place, it's very good. It's we last count, I think we have 6 pizza places within 1 mile of our business or 2 miles of our business. So we have a lot of competition. So we definitely raised the bar up, I think, in the area. So yeah, anybody have any questions for me or?
I hate to be this way, but I haven't been, I've been under a rock for the last couple of years. Exactly where are you located and what are your hours?
Do you know where the Castle Mall is at?
Oh yeah, in my backyard, kind of. Okay.
Yeah, so it's that goofy little shopping center that was started and stopped, and we're down in there. Like we're slowly starting to fill that little shopping center up. So when Julie and I took over the business, we were the last business before there was like 4 or 5 other empty spaces. There was a dog grooming place at one point. But that whole shopping center is actually starting to fill up. There's some dog trainers that moved in that they were at Harmony Dog Training Center over by Round Table Pizza. They moved in next door, so they've been great neighbors. And then we're actually looking to expand. I talked to the landlord, and he's pulling permits so we can start expanding in the space next to us. So as far as the second question was, we are open every day except Monday, and we open at 11 o'clock in the morning, and we go until 8 o'clock every night except Friday and Saturday we'll go to 9.
And do you by any chance have gluten-free crust?
We do. So we do 2 sizes of pizza. We do a great big 18-inch pizza, which will it'll probably feed 2 linebackers or 4 normal people, give you 2 good slices. But the smaller 10-inch pizza is what we have a gluten-free crust for. We have to buy that one. I'm not making that one from scratch. Great. And just as a disclaimer, we do everything as hand stretched. So I got flour in everything. So if you're gluten intolerant, you're probably going to be fine. But if you are celiac, it's probably not going to play well, especially severe celiac. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read about your cold fermented dough. Can you explain that?
So I don't know how much I want to give away, but much like a sourdough, you feed a starter and the natural yeast kind of takes over, and then you fortify that. But that starter is what really gives your sourdough a lot of flavor. I chose to not try to manage a starter because I'm hiring kids and trying to train them to do some pretty high level stuff. And I've found that taking a big batch of dough and letting it ferment just by itself for 3 days develops flavor a lot like that sourdough. So it's not going to be a true sour, And so we're not calling it that, but that fermentation process really develops a lot of flavor. It's a little trickier for us stretching because each batch seems like it's a little bit different depending on the age of the dough. But it really shines when you actually eat it. It's a pretty good product. So
And
Wayne Potter,
Suzanne, I saw your hand. I saw Suzanne's hand go up. And
Oh, I just wanted to know if you eat in or is it just takeout?
so the last year and a half has been pretty crazy. We have a very small footprint right now. So we did that strategically. My wife and I, we had limited funds to start the business. That's why it was so nice to see Napoli was there. And so the infrastructure was already there. However, it's only about 1,000 square feet. So a lot of that's taken up with the kitchen and our volume's pretty heavy. So we have 4 tables. We can seat about 16 people. We have a little bit of counter space. But that's why now that we're starting to come out the other end of COVID and starting to learn to live with this, people are starting to come out a little bit more. So Friday nights, it gets a little bit crazy in there. But Sunday through, I'd say Thursday, well, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we do pretty good and we can get people in if you want to dine in, but we're not going to be a great big large destination like a Pietro's or a Round Table.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Well, I was wanting Chris to comment on the dough, but he already did. And I can let all of you know that I've been there a few times and the pizza dough is very good. And Chris, I'm thinking that you put honey in that dough too, don't you?
Yeah, we do. So part of my previous life, I moved to Oregon from Northeast Nevada and to go to culinary school. I went to Horst Meger's Western Culinary School, and after that, I went to work for a steakhouse called the Keg Steakhouse. That's where my wife and I met, was at the Keg Steakhouse here in Milwaukee. For any of you that have lived here for over 20 years, we actually closed down that restaurant, but we're friends with Brian and Lee Grant. They own Coasters down in Gladstone. Long story short, the culinary side of what we're doing, it really, I've been in the food scene my entire career. The last 5 of it was spent with Broadline Food Distributor. I was a restaurant consultant, so I've spoken to probably 500 restaurants in the Oregon, Southwest Washington, Northwest California area. But there's a lot of trends that are happening right now, and honey is as simple as it may be. It's kind of taking over the pizza world by storm. There's some commercially made hot honeys that are really good, and so what I'm trying to do is I'm capitalizing on that trend right now because it's fairly new to this area. Before I moved up here to go to culinary school, I worked at a pizza place in Reno, Nevada, and we used to do the same thing, and I thought it was brilliant. So I'm taking a little bit of the marketing that I learned from a gentleman down there and kind of put it in place here, but it's also delicious. I mean, it gives me a great story to tell. And when you try the crust by itself, you can actually pick up the notes of the honey in there, along with all of the complexities of that cold fermented dough. But dipping it in the honey, it's great for kids. It's a nice little treat. So you don't have to, if you don't want to get the sugar of the cookies that we bake or the fresh brownies. So yeah, the honey, it's a fun little trick. It's a fun little story.
Jane, did you have a question?
I didn't. I just wanted to let everyone know that they also sell pizza by the slice. You can run in, grab a pizza at 11 o'clock or at noon and dash out with your slice.
Thank you. Yeah, we try to do, well, we don't try, we do a cheese pizza and a pepperoni pizza every day. The cheese, the sauce, and the dough, I really try to show it off. We're using a whole milk mozzarella. We do a real basic sauce so that the actual tomato really shines through the sauce. So it's not just beat down with a bunch of herbs and spices. So we do fresh herbs olive oil, salt. It's real simple. And then we try to do a specialty pizza every day to try to show off some of the fun ingredients we do. So we do herb roasted mushrooms so that they're more like a sauteed mushroom. We have a Basque chorizo that is fairly unique that I don't see anywhere in any restaurants, or it's slowly starting to kind of take root in some of the nicer restaurants I've been to. But we do herb roasted cauliflower. We Mama Lil's red peppers. There's a lot of just different ingredients that we've done to try to separate ourselves from the competition. So it's fun. Oh, I'm sorry. We put that on some of those specialty pizzas just to have fun too. So.
Any other questions or comments for Chris while he's here?
You didn't mention your wings.
Oh, go ahead.
My wings. So we do chicken wings. Well, we're starting small. We have a very small kitchen. We put wings on the menu because pizza and wings is kind of, you have to do it. We are trying to project a little bit nicer restaurant. So we have the wings. I've got a house-made buffalo sauce, so it's not just the standard you're going to get at at any of the bars in the area. But wings have been a challenge. With this last year with all the challenges we've had with getting product, we've had to raise the prices on those. They're still delicious. They're an oven roasted wing. We just changed the menu and added a boneless chicken wing, and so it's a little bit. You actually get a little bit better value because the chicken wings are more standard instead of the sizing of the chicken wings. The regular bone-in wings are more expensive, and the quality is all over the board with it right now. But for those gluten-free people, that we bought something that has a gluten-free crust on it, because our boneless wings, we don't put any kind of coating on it, just because we try to be gluten-free conscious for the folks that want to have that diet. We also, in the summertime, we introduced a garlic cheese focaccia, and we're taking our dough and we're proofing it out so that it's a big piece of focaccia, and we're coating it with a garlic compound, or roasted garlic compound butter, and we put a balsamic. We put our mozzarella, Parmesan, and smoked Gouda, and we bake that off so the cheese gets a little crispy and good, and then we do a finish with a balsamic glaze. That's pretty delicious. And we do salads and do a couple different salads, and then as summer comes by, and we're going to try to encourage more people to dine out. We have a small little deck out front. We put just some bench seating out there with some umbrellas. But we'll probably we will introduce some new salads as we move into the summertime.
Well, I'm
Thanks a lot for
hungry.
joining us tonight, Chris. Yeah, I'm really glad you were able to make it tonight, since we missed you last time, and I look forward to stopping in sometime.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me join.
Yeah, anytime. Feel free to come back anytime. I'd like to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thanks to Chris, and I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. So, Suzanne, did you have a question? You're muted.
Thank you. Chris, are you going to stay for the rest of the meeting? Is he gone already?
No, so
No,
I was actually just sending a direct message. Is it okay if I hang out for a little bit?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Are you going to stay to the very end though, or do you just think the reason I'm asking is because I want to say that Chris and his wife, Julie, right? Is that her name?
Yes.
Yeah, Chris and Julie just sent me an email today letting me know that they are sponsoring the festival. And so we appreciate their interest in being part of the community and supporting the community as well. So I just wanted to make sure that that everyone knows that about you and your wife. So thank you
very
Chris.
much. Yeah. No, and I appreciate the acknowledgement, because we know that we bought our first house here, so it's kind of it's a nice little neighborhood we know really well, and it's changed a lot for the better. Like, we were surprised to see how much, like, even though we've lived and worked in the area for the last 20 some years, we don't get to downtown Oak Grove very often, and we still drive by the old house, and it's changing a lot, and especially in that downtown area. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. So if we can contribute to that in any way, we hope so. And as a side note, and I want to piggyback on that a little bit, is that and I'm sure you bring it up in this and I don't want to open up a hornet's nest, but we do donate to some of the local homeless shelters to try to help out with some of this. We're being where we're at right at the end of the max line, and having that area in behind our little shopping center, it was really overrun with homeless people for a long time, and I quickly realized that I was going to have to start talking to some of these folks, and I found that a lot of these people just don't know where to go or what to do, and I didn't either. So we've been working on trying to figure out how do we approach these folks in a way that's more helpful than harmful. So we do a feature pizza every month, and we're proceeds from that, we're taking it to we've given some donations to Our Father's Heart in Oregon City, and then we're donating to Clackamas Services, or I'm sorry, Clackamas County Services over off of 82nd by the Fred Meyer. So it's interesting that there's just not a whole lot of resources right now. So as the Tri-County Commission gets going, it's going to be interesting to see how all this shakes out. So if you want to help us donate a little bit, that's our monthly pizzas go there. So thank you for the time, and I appreciate the acknowledgement.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for mentioning that, Chris. It's good to know. Thank you for doing that. So we're going to transition to the next part of our program. And so I will be speaking about the Clackamas County Housing Strategies Phase 2 project. And normally we would invite county staff to come in and give a presentation like this, but they opted to do a different strategy for outreach this time. And so in order to make sure that our CPO gets this information, I will be actually going through the county's PowerPoint tonight to start with. And then after that, I have some additional slides that I'll take you through to do some additional analysis that was missing from the county's presentation. So with that, I am going to share my screen. And Valerie, I'll just ask that you keep an eye on any raised hands or anybody who might want to comment or have questions in the chat. And if anything seems to be relevant to bring up kind of, before I move on, feel free to unmute and jump in. But Valerie will be moderating while I present this segment. Okay, so Housing Strategies Phase 2 is part of a 3-phase housing strategy series of projects that the county is undertaking. And the first phase was adopted late last year and involves some dealing with apartments in commercial areas, for instance. This phase 2, is the middle housing portion of the housing strategies implementation, which is you may all know as being associated with HB 2001 from the 2019 Oregon legislature. That bill was passed and adopted as law, and so that involves the middle housing, and so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And so this is kind of the loose definition of middle housing, is basically any kinds of housing that are kind of found on the spectrum between detached single family housing and larger apartment buildings. Middle housing is what's found between those, and that includes duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, courtyard apartments, bungalow courts, townhouses, and so those are the types. That's kind of where the cutoff is for House Bill 2001. To tell you the truth, is right at townhouse, and so we are actually required by law to make sure that these kinds of housing are permitted in our low density residential areas inside the urban growth boundary. And so those zoning districts are the R5 through R30. In our area, we mostly have R7, R8.5, and R10, although there are some larger lot sizes as well. And so the areas highlighted here in yellow, and don't worry about this, I'm going to show you some better maps in a few minutes. But this applies to everywhere that's unincorporated in the urban growth boundary, and there's some areas around Lake Oswego and Tualatin, around Oregon City, to the east of Milwaukee, and around Happy Valley that are all impacted by this, as well as our area and the Clackamas CPO east of Oakville Bridge. So by June 30th of this year, county is required to adopt zoning standards consistent with the state regulations or use the state's middle housing model code, or if no action is taken, the middle housing model code will become law automatically. And so again, that's dealing with these types of middle housing, duplexes, townhomes, triplexes, quadplexes, and cottage clusters. Just to be clear, the legislation is pretty strict, and the county has no control over the housing types. They have no control over what zoning districts these are allowed in or not, or no control over a review process. And then specifically, duplexes are required to be allowed on any lot where a single detached dwelling is allowed. And so those siting and design standards have to be the same as the single family house. And then obviously, as has always been the case, the county has no control over the housing price, although certain design standards could influence how the resulting price of the units. There's still no way to actually regulate that with the zoning code.
Joseph, Jenna has her hand up, so I'm wondering if there's a question over what you have just recently presented. Jenna, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, I was just wondering where the single family houses with like a ADU or a rental on it fall in line.
So there is ADUs are required to be allowed for single family dwellings, and that's, there's some requirements in this legislation about that. ADUs are definitely a generally considered a middle housing type, but they are regulated a little differently than this middle housing code. And we may have an opportunity to talk about that a little bit later, but ultimately this is really just dealing with the middle housing types. So with respect to the middle housing, again, the county does have some control over the minimum size of a site for certain types of middle housing, although it really, in all practicality, doesn't make a difference in our area. The county can provide, maintain protections for what are called state goal protected lands, such as floodplains, other natural hazard areas, natural resource areas. Some control over parking, although that's constrained as well, and then some control over design and siting standards, which is really just how things look, or how they, where on the site, on the specific site, different buildings can be placed. And this is a lot of words. So what they're doing is to add all of the middle housing types as allowed uses in the urban low density residential zones, clarify which development standards apply to middle housing. It's creating a new section. We're also removing the 3,000 square foot minimum lot size, and there's some extra detail to get into there that we will in a minute. They're proposing to amend lot coverage standards, which we'll talk about a little bit, as well as the sidewalk requirements, and then the parking requirements that they have to do to comply with the code. And so then there's some comprehensive plan amendments, and these really are just necessary to support, because zoning ordinances have to be consistent with comprehensive plan policies by state law. Then we kind of need to work backwards and make sure that our policies are supporting the laws, the regulations that we're required to adopt. So the county has had planning commission work sessions, policy sessions with the Board of County Commissioners. There has been public outreach meetings as well, and some surveys. And so there is some feedback in terms of most frequently mentioned benefit is increasing the amount of affordable housing as the result of this. Other benefits include more options for home buyers. There's some general support for what the legislation is asking us to do, although there are still some concerns about overcrowding and parking, as well as impacts to open space and changing neighborhood character. There's 50-50 split in the survey audience in terms of making rules more flexible to encourage middle housing rather than just do the absolute minimum to comply with state law. And so we'll talk about a little bit about that. There's some options. What do we have to do to as the minimum requirement to comply versus what would it look like if we were actually trying to encourage some more of these. And so if we were trying to encourage more middle housing, then we would look to see maybe we would allow plexes to be detached on a site rather than require all of them to be attached. It allows more flexibility. The same thing with lot size requirements. Maybe it's the same as a single family dwelling regardless of the number of middle housing units. Because things have to be identical, no more restrictive than a single family dwelling, then to encourage would mean that we make it a little bit more flexible than a single family dwelling. To do the minimum compliance, we would stick to making it just the same as a single family dwelling. And then another one is the sidewalks, which for quadplexes, for any development that's 4 or more units, sidewalks are required to be built. But if you're doing 3 or fewer units, then you can pay into a fund instead of making those improvements on your property frontage. You can pay into a fund that will allow those funds to be pooled and then spent on areas somewhere else in the county. And we've had some projects, including I think the sidewalk on Torbank between River Road and Oak Grove Elementary School. That were paid for with FILO, and there's other projects as well that are slated to be paid for with FILO funds.
Danielle has a question at this point. Joseph?
Yeah, I'm hoping this is a confirmation, but I'm expecting this is for new construction, everything. If you have a 4-unit right now, for example, you don't need to build sidewalks, they would be grandfathered in. Is that correct, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's nothing about our land use regulations can require an already permitted use to do something else to remain permitted. If you're permitted already, you're permitted the way you are. And that will come into play in some of our discussion coming up. Additionally, the minimum requirement to comply, minimally comply with the legislation, all parking, for instance, would be required to be provided on site. If we were looking to encourage middle housing to make it easier than it is, or would be basically, then we would, perhaps count street parking or, have a lower minimum required parking, for instance. But we can talk about what those options are a little bit. Here we're just, this is some detail on what cottage clusters are. And then, there's some requirements, and there's really not a lot of room to play with this. in terms of what the county can do. Although there is some flexibility, this is pretty standard what they're proposing here, for jurisdictions that are, legalizing cottage clusters as part of this legislation. The idea is to have on a larger lot in the urban area, you'd have these smaller buildings, and you can have from 4 to 9 that would be clustered around a common green or courtyard. And then they might have shared parking, at one end of the site, or, it's ultimately looking to provide smaller, more affordable housing types. So this is a little behind schedule, but here we actually show that there will be planning commission public hearing on Monday. So we're doing what we can to get it out ahead of that. But the Board of County Commissioners public hearing will be out in a month. And there may be a second public hearing for the Planning Commission on April 11th as well. But we'll see how that goes. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about how to submit comments in just a few minutes. So this is just some of the extra slides that were in the county's presentation that show, some of the different options. So with if you're requiring an attached duplex, then the buildings must be attached to each other. A detached duplex could have 2 separate structures that would be separated on the lot by some amount of open space. And the same principle can apply to a triplex or a quadplex. There's different jurisdictions are approaching this question differently, and choosing to do things one way or the other based on on their policies. And so I'll show you some slides here in a minute that show why we might want to talk about that possibility a little bit more. And so this is kind of what I was talking about, where it doesn't really matter, the lot size part doesn't really matter in our area, and that's because by state law, any lot in these zoning districts that is 5,000 square feet or larger must accommodate triplexes in addition to single family or duplexes. And then any lot that's 7,000 square feet or larger must also accommodate cottage clusters or quadplex. And so in our area, our smallest zoning district is R7, which is 7,000 square feet. And so basically, per that zoning designation, there's all of our lots would allow these. But I'll get into some, kind of some nuance there in just a minute. So when we're talking about setbacks, and this is kind of important, when we're talking about setbacks, there's a rear yard setback, that is intended to provide some, open space for, some private open space for the occupants of the home. There's a side yard setback, and then there's the front yard setback, which is intended to, provide a little bit of distance between the sidewalk and the front of the structure. So when we're talking about setbacks and making setbacks more flexible, what we're talking about is perhaps reducing these setbacks a little bit to allow the building to take up a little bit more space towards the side, and maybe not both sides, but maybe just on one side because of a tree over here, or other elements of the site, features of the site that make it work better to be a little bit closer to a lot line. That's the flexibility that we're talking about when we're talking about setbacks. And again, the minimum requirement for this is that the plexes are no more restrictive than a single family dwelling. And then here's the other thing that is kind of odd. It's an odd nuance of this, is that although the same 7,000 square foot lot could accommodate either a single family dwelling, a duplex, a triplex, a quadplex, or a cottage cluster. Once you move from a triplex to a quadplex, you automatically are required to build sidewalks in front of that lot, regardless of anything else. And so if we were to want to encourage or not discourage a quadplex on a lot where it might make sense, but where sidewalks might not make sense, because we do have some streets in our communities that don't already have sidewalks, and because of low traffic volumes, frankly, may not need sidewalks. It might be, it might better suit our policy objectives to allow fourplex on a smaller local street to pay into the fee in lieu of fund, so that those resources could be pooled and the funds could be spent on a project where it's more necessary. So right now, the county is basically proposing to leave this alone, where 3 or fewer units does not, or would have the option to pay into the fee in lieu of fund, but a quadplex would have to pay or would have to build sidewalks, no matter what the street context is, where the nearest sidewalks happen to be, whether or not it's on the essential pedestrian network. No other. It's really just it would be, you'd have possibly have just a sidewalk to nowhere. That would be required if you did 4 units, but not if you did 3 on the same lot. So, and then this is where, obviously parking is a sticky, question for a lot of people, and that's fine. But the really with a courtyard, with the nuance here is that this is showing a cottage cluster where off-street parking, is clustered at one end of the site, and the cottages are on, this other portion of the site. But then here's the street down at the bottom, and there's curbside, street parking, like there is everywhere that, there's, well, everywhere there's not a bike lane. But does this count? The question is, should this street parking count towards the required minimum or not? And that flexibility is something that we'll talk about here in just a minute, because I think this is the last slide of the county slideshow. But we've got some additional analysis to do here. So I'm going to share this presentation. So again, this is just a quick summary of what's being proposed, within, the housing strategy phase 2 amendments. And again, this is really what we just talked about. It's just kind of spelling it out a little further, but we are going to get into some detail of what all this means. I don't need you to read all this because I already talked about it. So again, here's the county's map. This is the one that they show you to show where the middle housing legislation requires the county to legalize middle housing. And so I'll zoom us in a little bit on our area. And you'll see that it is our urban low density residential zones. Obviously McLaughlin Boulevard is commercial. The industrial zone, is not counted. And then our middle density zones, such as in downtown Oak Grove and on either side of the McLaughlin commercial corridor, are also not included in this. It's just the urban low density residential zones, and basically we're just legalizing these housing types as low density residential uses. So
Joseph, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
At one point,
Yes,
you said that in our area, we have 7,000 square foot lots. And so basically everything would be allowed. And I just wanted to put a little rider on there that I live in an area where there are plenty of 50 by 100 lots. And those are 5,000 square foot lots. So I think it's really important for anybody that lives in an area where there is 50 by 100 to know those are 50 by 100, and those are only eligible up to a triplex, not quads, etc.
Right, and we, again, I will talk about that in greater detail in just a minute. I'm getting into kind of the absurdity of the zoning designations right now. And that's actually a prudent point, but the zoning designations, and I'll show you, what I mean in just a second. So here's the zoning map. I've kind of isolated this here so that we're, not including the city of Milwaukee or the other CPO to our east or Gladstone or the cities on the other side of the river. We're just looking at, the street map in our area, and these are the zones in our area. And this is kind of how this is how the county presents this. And so it's maybe not completely indifferent from how we think about our area. It's a lot of low density residential, and there's some medium density residential and some commercial and a little pocket of industrial. And that's what we're used to. So I'm going to change the view here, and we're going to drop out all of the zones except for the low density residential. So you can see, and there's a lot of numbers in here, and that's because there's actually a lot of different zoning designations, even though, again, this is really how the county represents this on their zoning maps. You can't really tell the difference between one zone or the other. So I'm going to change this to be high contrast. And so with this view, the R10 zones are shown in red. The R7 zones are shown in green. We have a tiny little pocket of R20 here on Woodland Way, the south end of Woodland Way, that's shown in beige. And then we have a lot of R8.5 in this lavender color, generally along Oakfield Road. And so this is how the zoning designations really see our area. It's there's these distinctions between neighborhoods, that run along streets, or even just, houses side by side. Here where the zoning designation is completely different, and supposedly lot sizes are completely different. And so we're going to get into this a little bit. So here on the left, this is in Valerie's neighborhood, actually. Here on the left is R10. Here on the right is R7. And, these, you can't really tell the difference. It's this neighborhood was built, I think one of these houses was 1959 and the other one was 1960. And actually at the time, the zoning code didn't even exist in Clackamas County. And so, it's the zoning designations we have are actually very arbitrary. So again, here we're looking at the house that was on the left of the previous image. Here you can see it's R10. I know this is tiny. I don't need you to read all of this. I'm just showing you the detail. But this one is R10, and the one right across the street is R7.
That's my house.
They're the same size.
Was that on purpose?
Nice. Nope. I had no idea. But again, there's, if you look at the size of the lot, it's 2/100ths of an acre difference. There's really no reason why these should be different zoning designations. It just doesn't make any sense. And then, just to kind of show how our other ways that our zoning designations are really applied arbitrarily or inconsistently. Here's an apartment complex across the street from Oak Grove Elementary School that is in the R10 zone. Apartment complexes are not allowed in the R10 zone, but here we are. These older uses, regardless of what regulations change, when something is already there, it's allowed to stay there. But, when we really think about, there's been a lot of discussion over the years, particularly that I've been involved in the OGCC, where, we really talk a lot about, we need to protect R10 and R10 is really important to protect that. But here we have all these examples where here's another apartment complex just on the other side of Oak Grove Elementary on Courtney. This is in the R10 zone. So it's not like R10 is sacred. Our R10 zones are a mixture of different types of residential uses. And here's an apartment that's also in the R10 zone on Oak Grove Boulevard. Here's a duplex on Oak Grove Boulevard, and this was built in 1940, 20 years before we had a zoning code, and it's on a very small, should be 0.25 to, be in the R10 zone, but this is 0.15.
Hey, that's my
And so these
backyard.
uses are, yeah. So, these uses are already here, and here we go. It's just this quaint little duplex, with a little driveway area in front, and it's been there forever, and it's part of the neighborhood fabric. And moving down the hill a little bit, we can see we're still, deeply in the R10 zone, but, here's another, extra small site with a single family detached house on it. So, oh, this is actually a little bit further north. I'm sorry, this is Courtney. So, anyway, it's our area largely developed before the zoning code existed. And so, really, we have a haphazard mixture of different kinds of lot sizes and everything. And so it's not fair to, or easy to, it's not as easy to think of things as being, just, R10 or R7 or, whatever. There's really a mix of things that are already here. And that's going to come into play a little bit. So, that's unfortunate. I was, wanted to show you guys, what's behind this, and let's see if it'll. So, and then in thinking about R10, this is a modern R10 subdivision. When we're talking about protecting R10, this is what we're saying we want to protect. And I don't think that this is what we're saying, that I don't think that this, with all apologies to the people that live here, I don't think that this is what our community is talking about when we're saying that we want to protect R10. I think that we want to protect, our trees, our natural spaces, our the general natural character, of the community. I don't think that we're really looking at just the lot size as a factor here. Because this is an R10 neighborhood, but it doesn't have, any trees or anything. And this one was built to the county standards of R10, and then annexed into the city of Milwaukee after that. But I just kind of want to be clear, what modern R10 does, and when we advocate for keeping things R10, let me put this. See if it'll let me put this back. This is basically what the end result is. Regardless of our intention, this is the end result. It's a neighborhood of $800,000 houses. And so it's really important to understand the consequences of the different policies that that we're advocating for. And so I just kind of wanted to be clear, that there's really a diverse mixture of uses, in our community, and part of that diverse mixture helps things to be more affordable. It's not just R10 that will preserve things. R10 actually has a way of kind of creating these perverse impacts.
Before you move
And
on,
so,
Joseph,
I'm going to talk.
Commissioner Savas has a question, comment to make. So,
Yeah,
Okay.
Joseph, if you could just just go back to that last slide, please. And maybe even the one before it. I think the point I'd just like to make, and I'd certainly like to hear from you all. I'll actually go back to the one you just had. I'm sorry, that one. Thank you. The point I want to make here, and I guess we need to talk about it, I think we do, is that, as we know, whether it's the most recent case along Whipple, that subdivision out over there, the biggest issue or the opportunity that we have is that a lot of the R10 stuff has a significant amount of tree inventory in the R10 zones. And so, when you picture and you develop it into higher densities, I think we're going to have to reconcile, or at least deal with the conflict that we all have. And we all love our trees, we all love our tree canopy. But if we maximize that, I think people need to realize that we're going to lose a significant amount of our tree inventory. And I guess we have to be honest about that. That's something I've heard as a member of this community council since 1997, countless numbers of times where we wanted to save our trees. So I just want to flag that. that has been a longstanding issue. And the other thing I put in the chat is that when it comes to sidewalks, the growing need for especially people with low income, but the need for sidewalks when it comes to a safety issue. And ideally, we build out a sidewalk system, but I would hate to see us forego that, because people that are either whether they're walking with some device that helps them, a walker or a cane or whatnot, or in a wheelchair, that's not easy to do in the mud, or with no shoulder, or in the gravel if it's graveled. So just want to flag those two things. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, and we'll definitely talk about both of those in just a couple minutes. So then to revisit the next thing that the county is doing is the 3,000 square foot minimum lot size for residential development. And what this is that there's a minimum size for any lot to be developed with a single family house. However, there's legislation that was recently passed that requires that the county recognize and allow development of duplexes on any legally platted lot. And there's some lots are platted in the county as part of their subdivisions on file with the assessor as 2,500 square feet. They're 25 by 100. And so the county will have to allow duplexes on those lots. And so they also are proposing to remove the 3,000 square foot minimum lot size so that they could also allow a single family house, a detached house on the same size of lot that they would be required to allow a duplex. So that's what this is about. And we're going to, I just explained this one. So I just want to show you really quick. There's just this one isn't even in our area. This is over south of Johnson Creek Boulevard, north of King Road, and then 82nd Avenue is over here on the east. And there's a lot of 2,500 square foot lots in here, and so these are legal lots of record, and they'll have to be allowed to be developed with duplexes. And so the county is proposing to allow them to be developed with single family houses as well. Similarly, in our area, although they aren't 2,500 square foot, this is Oak Grove Park, and this is that pocket neighborhood that is between Rupert, basically over here, and McLaughlin Boulevard over here. And there's a lot. These are kind of narrow lots, and actually a lot of these are this is the R7 district, so these theoretically have to be 7,000 square foot lots, but there's a lot of these smaller lots that are already developed with detached single family houses. And so we will have to allow this as well. And so again, just kind of pointing back to the zoning designation is R7, but here's these 4,000 square foot lots or 4,500 square foot lots where we're going to have to allow duplexes and probably single family dwellings as well. And so it starts to my point with this is really that the zoning designations are a little arbitrary. And so we should really be thinking about things in terms of like Commissioner Savas was bringing up, we need to be thinking about things in terms of what we want, what policy goals we want our different sites to achieve. Here's another subdivision that was platted out many years ago before the zoning code that includes some very undersized lots just along the west side of the trolley trail. So here's trolley trail in Arista and Hugh Avenue. And this neighborhood features a lot of lots that are well below the R10 minimum of 10,000 square feet. It is the zoning district right now. So these will all have to be, and some of these are already developed with houses, and so this is already a part of our neighborhood, these small lots. Now, this one is a little bit questionable in my opinion, and I wanted to call this out. I know I tend to be pretty objective, but I'm going to do a little bit of advocating here because I think that this is important to really consider. We really are trying to protect some trees and protect our natural features, and so do the larger lots of R7 and above, which includes our entire area. We don't have any R5 technically in our area. even though we do have lots that small, like I was saying, like Valerie was saying, we do have lots that size. The zoning districts don't. But the zoning district requires right now no more than a 40% lot coverage, and that's building. That's the portion of the site that can be covered by building. What the county is proposing to do is allow for a 50% lot coverage on all of the larger zoning districts, R7 and above. And this would not apply to planned unit developments, which already have a 65% requirement of, well, I mean, it's just because of the open space that they're required to give and everything. So it's planned unit developments are different. But in terms of, is this a good idea to increase the maximum lot coverage when, perhaps we think that protecting trees is a priority? So I harvested some slides from the City of Milwaukee's presentation on this subject, because they actually went into some greater detail and analysis about tree protections than the county did. And so I know that this is really fuzzy. I want to give you just an example of, really kind of what the City of Milwaukee is looking at, so that we can compare that with what we're looking at here in the county. So for a typical 5,000 square foot lot, which again is smaller than any of our zoning designations, but we definitely have lot sizes in this range. The City of Milwaukee has pretty much has a maximum 35% lot coverage, but the county is proposing to do 50%, including for even larger sites. And so on a hypothetical, here's a hypothetical 5,000 square foot site, so it's 50 by 100. It's got some trees on the site and this existing house. The white dotted line here that's really just impossible to see is that area, the building envelope, that is within the setbacks that I was talking about a few minutes ago. And so, but regardless of where these setbacks are, you're still only allowed to do a 35% lot coverage. So you can cover up to 35% of the site, and you have to be within this white square, but you can be anywhere within the white square, but you can't cover more than 35%. And so, so here we go with thinking about how the parking and the design standards may impact the ability to protect trees on a site. And so if we develop a site with a triplex, so we have this site, and here's the 35% lot coverage of the structure, the triplex structure that's being proposed. And here's one street parking space that counts towards it, and then 2 off-street parking spaces. The second scenario shows or really shows how if you move this one driveway out into the setback, that you're able to save an additional tree in this case. But if you were to require all 3 spaces on the site, instead of using the driveway or the curbside spaces that are possibly available, you end up needing to configure it to where you lose most of the trees on the site. And so this demonstrates different options that can be considered for trying to protect trees on a site by allowing flexibility for a different standard. Now, the same concept applies here, and this is the only other one that I'm showing from Milwaukee. And this is whether or not the triplex is completely attached, stacked, or detached. And as you can see in the different scenarios, that a triplex that covers the full 35% lot coverage is going to is going to require some additional tree removal. If you were to stack part of it and not require the whole 35% lot coverage, you could save some more trees. And if you were to actually allow it to be detached, to where one of the units was detached from the other 2 units and located in a different spot on the site, although still within that setback envelope, you get to save even more trees on the site. And so this really demonstrates how allowing flexibility to the landowner when they're making these decisions about what works on their site really gives the option to protect trees in a way that What the county is proposing does not, because the county is proposing minimum compliance, very rigid standards that require everything to be attached, require all of the parking to be on site. Really doesn't give an opportunity for any flexibility whatsoever to consider whether there's opportunities to save trees on the site. And so this is really just demonstrating that this is one way that we could approach this to try to, protect the tree canopy that we have.
Joseph, Commissioner Savas has a hand up. If you have a moment.
Okay.
Yeah, Joseph, you just go back to that last slide. That's an awesome slide. Thank you so much for using that. One thing I want to just share with you all is that, and I like the example you have there, but just a word of caution. When I bought my property, I added some structure size, garage and so forth on my home, and the contractor said, "Paul, you're gonna have to take that tree down." I go, "Well, it's only like 12 feet away from the building. Paul, you're gonna have to take it down because it's gonna damage your that root, the coverage that the root mass goes to is pretty broad, and so the risk is, and it turns out he was right, because now I'm experiencing some damage to my property. It's going to be significant to rectify it. So I just want to make people aware that it might look good on a picture, but in reality, for the health of the tree, you can't have it that close. And not only that, but you also got to think about the utilities when they start to dig, that sometimes when they trench and do all that digging, that they can damage the tree in and of itself. So sometimes an arborist will say, that's got to go, that's got to go. And what looks good on a picture isn't in real life that applicable. So you end up losing more trees than that picture might cite there. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a fair consideration, and I think what I'm trying to convey is that by allowing the flexibility to arrange the structures on the site more flexibly, that you may create the opportunity to save trees that you may not have had with the rigid standards that are being proposed. And so that may be an opportunity where we want to advocate for more opportunities to allow landowners more opportunities to protect trees, even if we can't require it like the city of Milwaukee is doing by implementing a strong tree code.
Jana has a question as well before you move on, Joseph.
Okay.
No, I don't have a question, more so just I used to have a tree service, excuse me, and we would bid projects like this and advise just exactly what you're saying. So I'm just saying that I agree with you. There are ways to plan and get around sometimes, not always. And there's even root pruning that can be done sometimes to create a path for utilities, case by case.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So the next thing I'm going to share is now we're going to talk a little bit about what the policy goals are here. And I realize that we're running long with this, but this is all important stuff, and the hearings are coming right up, so we're getting into this. The policy goals are, really that we're trying to create more affordable housing, but also this is a desegregation law. And so we've talked about this before, where in our community, because of the age of some of the subdivisions, that we have deed restrictions that actually say what races of people that we can or cannot sell or rent our homes to, such as in my neighborhood, where all of the lots in the subdivision shall be used and occupied for residence purposes only, and no lot in the entire subdivision shall be used, occupied, or owned by any people except those of the Caucasian race. Now, this, as offensive as this is, was standard practice in the first part of the 20th century. And so, and basically segregation was allowed to be enforced through court, basically. Your neighbors could sue you for renting your home or your basement to a Black family, for instance. So, but then that was found unconstitutional in the late 40s. Around that same time, the around that same time, 1947, the state passed enabling legislation that allowed counties to set their own zoning standards, which was not allowed before that. And then in 1960, Clackamas County adopted its first zoning code. And it was pretty well understood at this point, because the Supreme Court had ruled these deed restrictions to be unconstitutional, that there was a lot of effort in the wake of that decision to pass very technocratic zoning codes that did not use race explicitly, but were implicitly intended to perpetuate segregation. And that's what the zoning code is that we've adopted, or that we've inherited, I should say, is rooted in the intent to perpetuate segregation. And so this legislation is trying to overturn that in as gentle of a way as it possibly can, by permitting a lot of these uses that were standard practice in traditional neighborhoods before 1960. So then getting into this a little bit more, we're really looking at, it costs a lot of money to live here, basically. And people don't make that much money. And so, if we're really looking at, people having to come up with, almost $1,500 a month for housing, in Clackamas County. And we'll see how that kind of fits in with the dynamic here in just a second. And then here's the different budgets for different kinds of households. And you can see it's just really expensive, and it's disproportionate to the incomes that people are getting, and people are earning to be able to afford to live here. It's really all I'm trying to show here, is that it is really expensive to, especially if you're a young family, it's really expensive to try to live here in Clackamas County and in the metro area. So here's some information from the Sightline Institute about the market dynamics. And so when we're thinking about, say, a single family house, and we're afraid that it's going to get torn down and replaced with a quadplex or a triplex, what are the market dynamics that actually support this? And so so here are several, there's actually 8 examples, I think, or 7 examples of a lot, and what the dynamics are that would allow that to be redeveloped with different kinds of uses. And so to knock down, and this is a real site in Portland that this was studied by the Sightline Institute, and so this is real world data. And I know have to infer a little bit about what it means in Clackamas County, but as being in the metro area, it should be pretty consistent dynamics economically. So ultimately, in order to tear down a single family house that's perfectly fine and replace it with a single family house that's 2,500 square feet, this is buildable as an investment when rents reach $7,500 per month. So this is like, way like the only houses in West Lynn and Lake Oswego rent above $7,000 a month, in the metro area. It's very uncommon to see rents that high. So anything, our dynamics being here closer to, $2,000 a month, it's not feasible to knock down a perfectly good house and replace it with a brand new house. The market dynamics just don't support it. So you would end up seeing probably a remodeled older home. But again, it's the 3,500 is pretty steep rents to support this kind of an investment. A triplex could be built on a site. Again, this is knocking down a house and putting up a brand new triplex when rents reach $3,200 a month, which is closer to where we are, but still a way to go. A fourplex could be built on a site with a knockdown of a house for when rents reach about $2,500 a month, which is far more closer to where we are. So if we actually wanted to encourage some of this housing, then allowing fourplexes on more lots would including some of those smaller lots that we were talking about in our area, that might be the only way that we're able to actually see the market fulfill any middle housing development in our area based on rents for the projected future, or several years into the future. Here's an option that we haven't really talked about, which is a double ADU. This could be supported at $1,700 a month, $1,760. That's, strikingly close to what we just saw on that slide for what the average, household is, here in Clackamas County. So this could net some production of some pretty small housing, in backyards without knocking down a house. So a house stays and we get 2 smaller dwellings for, college students or elderly parents. That dynamic is supported again at, kind of today's rents. And then these other examples are, there's a home on wheels example, which is, very inexpensive. But then, here's a, splitting a house, and at 919, it's able, you could, divide internally a house to rent out, part of it as a plex. So, some of these are, these ones on the right are certainly affordable to, within the current market dynamics for our area. But really, these ones over here that are primarily the focus of this bill are not really economically feasible in our area. So we need to think about that when we're thinking about, are we being protectionist? Are we being encouraging? Are we encouraging this? What are the likely impacts of this legislation, on our area? Well, the likely impacts are not much.
Joseph,
And-
Mr. Salvis has a hand up.
Okay.
Hand disappeared.
Yeah, sorry about that. I put my hand down. I didn't really know I had it up.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. So, so then where is middle housing development most likely to occur? And I would argue that, middle housing is most likely to occur. The easiest places for it to occur, since it's not really economically viable to knock down a house that's good, are on sites that are able to be split, partitioned. And so here's a map that all of these great lots in green, ignore the red dots, this is a map for a different purpose, but all of the sites that are shown here in green are more than double the minimum lot size in that zoning district. And so these ones would be, these lots would be the most likely candidates to support new middle housing in our area, because again, you partition the lot, you divide it in half, you get a new lot, and then you have a brand new lot that you can put something on without tearing something down. And so, you can see the larger lot sizes in our area are clustered around the river and Aldercrest Hill. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. So this this is a map of, this is a very outdated map of a buildable lands inventory for our area. And what this shows, several of these have already been redeveloped, like in Jennings Lodge and the Saragino Farms that we were just talking about. Actually, lots of these have already been redeveloped, but the darker lots are the ones that are economically feasible to subdivide and redevelop. And as you can see, there's just not a lot of opportunity. We're all pretty small lot sizes at this point. So there's just not a lot of opportunity to do much more. And again, with the economics, not really. I'm sorry.
I just want to point out to you that it's 8:25.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm getting close. I'm pretty sure I'm getting close to the end here. So I'm just coming back to this map that shows our high contrast, zoning designations for the area. Along the river again is the most likely place where we have these larger lot sizes. But when I add the floodplain in here, which the floodplain is going to not allow middle housing, you can see that a lot of that is taken up by floodplain. So there really just are not a lot of opportunities in our area to support additional middle housing development. The next thing I wanted to add back here is the medium density housing that we already have in our communities. So like downtown Oak Grove, there's medium density housing. There's some apartments and some townhouses and some duplexes and things. And there's also some single family detached houses that are there. And to further reinforce the idea of the market dynamics, there's a lot of single family housing in these zoning districts, and this is a zoning district where you cannot build new single family housing. You can only build duplexes or row houses or more dense, more apartments or whatever. And we're not seeing very much middle housing development, even in these areas where that's the only thing that's allowed to be built. So we don't really have great prospects, I think, for seeing a lot of middle housing development. So I think that we should take that into consideration as we, kind of formulate, our advocacy. So then just the last two things that the county is doing, again, is they're identifying standards for middle housing land divisions, which is supposed to encourage property ownership for these more affordable housing types. And then also making it easier to have a manufactured dwelling on a lot in the urban area. So if we were to encourage, so my recommendations, as someone who's been involved in, policy development around this and has been involved in land use issues, in our area, for years now, we really want to enable and encourage protecting healthy, mature trees that are already around. And pardon my typo there in the middle, but that would include flexibility for site design standards, like allowing attached or detached plexes. Allow the fee in lieu of for plex development. And then perhaps some flexibility for the minimum parking standard, like was shown, where some of the parking might be allowed to be in the driveway, in the front setback, or in the street front if there's a curbside parking space. And particularly when the opportunity exists to protect healthy, mature trees. I think this flexibility is really key, to preserving those trees. Without that flexibility, anything that gets built will be attached. All the paved parking will have to be on site, and it will be less likely that we'll have trees, protected. The other recommendation I would have, particularly in light of how little housing development opportunities really exist, and the fact that this really is a 30 to 50 year plan. This is not a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan. This is a 30 to 50 year plan. And so, we kind of need to think in terms, grander scale terms, when we're thinking about the impacts of middle housing on our neighborhoods. And so to allow more naturally affordable housing to be built, these would be smaller units on smaller lots. So allow triplexes on those smaller lots, allow quadplexes on those smaller lots, allow 2 ADUs on a residential lot. Those are ways that we could see more naturally affordable housing rather than more $700,000 or $800,000, R10 houses. And so the public hearing dates for this coming up Monday, March 28th, Planning Commission hearing. I don't think that we'll be able to get, if we approve comments tonight, I'll get something in by Monday, don't worry. But it's a pretty short timeline. I'd encourage everyone to submit their own comments or attend the hearing by Zoom and submit testimony, that way. But that'll be 6:30 p.m. on Monday. And then the Board of County Commissioners hearing will be at 10 a.m. Wednesday, April 27th. And we'll definitely have comments in by then if you guys approve anything for me. So that's what I have for you guys, and I will respond to any additional questions. Jenna.
Can you throw up links, or where would I find those meetings that you just shouted out so I can find the information on them? Where are they posted? Yeah.
It's I don't have that link. It should be you can look up the Clackamas County Housing Strategies on Google, and I think what we'll do is we'll get the link into the chat and send it out in our follow-up newsletter.
Okay.
Thank you. Fred, I saw you wave your hand.
Thank you, Joseph. I thank you for the insight that this is not going to likely create very many housing. I live just adjacent to Oak Grove Park, where many of the lots were 40 feet by 110 feet. And over the years, when people previously they bought 2 or 3 or 4 lots, and when Old Crummy House is torn down, they put up 2 houses right next to each other, $500,000 houses and cover the whole lot. And people with $500,000 can afford a $500,000 lot, can afford a bunch of cars. So the two parking spots in front of their house, but there's also one or two kind of on the street, and there's not very much room for that. So anyway, so I think your point is well taken that we aren't going to see very many middle housings in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Any other questions or comments? We can definitely come back to this next month in time for the Board of County Commissioners meeting if we want to, think about what comments we want to send in as a community council. But I'd also encourage everyone to send their own comments in individually. Jenna, did you have something?
Yeah, real quick. Earlier, I heard you say that ADUs were kind of their separate thing in a residential neighborhood, but then I saw that like 2 ADUs on one property. Does that bring it into middle housing? I'm just wondering, I potentially have the space to do that. Basically, what that would.
Yeah, we can certainly, this would be an opportunity to advocate for permitting 2 ADUs. If that were something that we wanted to do. The modeling that the Sightline Institute did show that 2 ADUs is economically viable at rents that we're already seeing today in Clackamas County and in Oak Grove. So this would be an opportunity to advocate for that because although it's not required that we allow 2 ADUs, we could, advocate for that as part of this same process. And that's does seem to be what the city of Milwaukee is going to adopt as well, is allowing 2 ADUs for a residential lot. Valerie?
Yeah, I had a question. When you were talking about coverage of the lot, is there a height restriction? I mean, can you build up as opposed to spreading out over the lot? How would that work?
Yeah, I think it's 35 feet. It's pretty tall, but I know some newer houses get kind of tall, particularly when they have a small footprint. But there's no practical height limitation. I think you're not going to see 4-story buildings. But maybe a 2.5 or a 2-story with a I don't know. Milwaukee has what are called plane side yard height plane that makes it to where you can't build a box that's all the way up 3 stories. That 3rd story has to be smaller so that it saves some solar access for your neighbors. Basically, is the intention of that. But I don't think we have that same kind of requirement here in the county. Greg.
I think we actually do, because when I put up my garage, there was a height limit based on the halfway between the peak and the eaves. And it was based, the setback was based on what that height was. Now that was 7 years ago, so maybe that's changed, but I think there is.
Yeah, I know there's a solar access code. I've heard them say they don't enforce it.
They did for my design.
Did you have another comment, or was that it? That was it? Okay, thank you. So we still have some more of our show to go. I really just wanted to make sure that I got all that information out to you and let you know kind of where the room is to maneuver on this, so that if you want to send in your comments to the county, that what to do, where to send those and when to do it by. So we can definitely talk about this more, next month. Feel free to send me emails, questions, whatever. Particularly if you have questions about submitting your own testimony, I'm happy to, answer any questions. So if there's nothing else on this subject, I'll hand it over to Valerie and we'll try to close this thing out by 9 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. So in response to a letter that OGCC had received from the county administrator, the Oak Grove Community Council Board formed a subcommittee to do some thinking regarding Oak Grove Community Council membership in MAPIT. If you might remember, the Community Council voted to go on hiatus from MAPIT a year ago, a little over a year ago. We drew up some thoughts and we reached out to the people who have specifically represented Oak Grove Community Council on MAPIT since MAPIT was reconstituted. So what we heard back from everyone who participated and gave us feedback was that everyone felt very positive about the McLaughlin area plan, but did not feel that MAPIT was a vehicle that was currently being helpful for us to promote MAPIT, the MAP vision. Then Oak Grove Community Council has, through the board, has begun a concerted effort to try to make contacts with the businesses that are particularly in our CPO boundary. We do that through connection with historic downtown Oak Grove, and also with some of the other business owners that we have been reaching out to directly. So at this time, the suggestion is just to leave things as they are right now, and let the Oak Grove Community Council reach out to the businesses in our area and see if there's a way to focus on the McLaughlin area plan vision as it might relate to our area. Also just pointing out that MAP was a 10-year plan and it has been 10 years. So there is rethinking already that's going on. So that's just the statement back from the work that the subcommittee did.
Thank you for that update, Valerie. I appreciate that. We did, have that conversation with the county administrator, last week, and he let us know that that direction is completely okay if that's what we want to do. So it makes sense to me, based on the feedback that we received, and so I appreciate the effort that you guys went into to get feedback from everybody and that had participated in representing OGCC to MAPIT. So thanks for that update, Valerie, and we will move into our committee updates. So just really quick about LUART, there was a decision that came through from Board of County Commissioners to approve the historic resource designation up on Oakfield that we looked at a couple months ago and submitted comments in favor of, and so that was approved. And other than that, there might be some things coming up, but we don't have anything to show you right now. So we'll get into our committee updates. So up first, Rich or Greg, do you want to give a CERT update?
Well, I'll defer to Greg if he's been to a meeting because I missed the last one.
Sure. We're continuing our discussion with the Clackamas Fire District Chief Mulick, the ops chief, about how CERT is actually going to be operating under the auspices of Clackamas Fire, given that the emergency manager was laid off, and things seem to be going well on that right there. Just for basic CERT training, on April 2nd, we're going to hold our final field exercise for a bunch of folks that have done the online training. We've actually added 3 or 4 different people to our group, local CERT group from the online training. And we'll continue to start posting advertisements for how to join CERT and get CERT training. So more to follow. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, Greg. Rich, do we have an update from CPO Summit this month?
Very short one. CPO Summit is celebrating an anniversary of being around for a long time and trying to reevaluate what we're trying to accomplish. And something may come out of that shortly. Who knows?
Awesome. Thanks. Danielle, do you have a Community Road Fund Committee update? Nope. Okay.
No, I likely won't
And
until
then
September.
okay, I'll make a note of that. And then I'm pretty sure Valerie didn't go to the EDC this morning, and so I don't think we have an update there. But Rich, is there an update from the Emergency Preparedness Council?
No, we haven't met at all since then. It's a quarterly meeting, and I'll let you know when we meet again.
Okay. And then up next, I would like to welcome Wayne Potter to give an update from the Willamette View Green Team, and we're going to add them to our regular ABC updates. And so Wayne, go ahead.
Thank you very much. If you will, I would like to share my screen to show the proclamation I want to speak to. So if I may. I'm not sure I'm allowed to or not.
I can't, I'm looking for Wayne on the list to see if I can get that. For some reason, it's not. Aha, found you. Just a second here. Okay, you should be able to share.
So I believe you should be able to see the proclamation at this point.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you very much for allowing me to propose that the council proclaim April 22nd, 22 as Earth Day 22. The Earth Day 2022 theme this year is Invest in Our Planet, which is focused on accelerating solutions to combat the greatest threat, climate change, and to activate everyone, governments, citizens, businesses, to do their part, everyone accounted for and everyone accountable. The proclamation, which I've provided for you, makes it pretty clear that to the public that it's essential that we have a healthy environment where our youth have an opportunity to join us in solving our climate crisis, that our future depends on creating green economies where green jobs are available within our own community, both now and in the future. I think that such proclamation really helps inform the public about the immediate need for solutions, since we face a rather short period of time before there's some more negative impact, both environmental, social, health conditions that further affect our community's well-being. So I would ask that you endorse and adopt this proclamation that could be made available to the public. I believe that the adoption of the statement could provide a great opportunity to educate our community about smart, sustainable communities. I believe that such a presentation could help further promote the Park Avenue Community Project, for example. And that's basically, I didn't want to go on and on tonight, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to consider endorsing this proclamation and making it available to the public. I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you, Wayne. You could stop sharing real quick and we'll get to see everyone's faces again. Valerie?
Yeah, I'd just like to move that the Oak Grove Community Council adopt this proclamation.
I would second that, Joseph.
Okay, we've got Valerie making a motion and Jane seconding. And are there any further discussion before we vote? Okay.
Yeah.
What's up, Daniel?
I just wanted to share, I've captured the motion from Valerie, seconded by Jane. And I just wrote Oak Grove Community Council moves to adopt the proclamation as written. Did we want to add anything about sharing it as well as requested?
We can send it out in our follow-up
Oh, okay.
email.
Okay.
I think that would be good. Dave, I see your hand is up.
I think we should not be voting to approve something we have not had time to read.
I will say that Wayne summarized the proclamation accurately, and that ultimately we're looking to, the motion is looking to endorse a proclamation that Earth Day is April 22nd is Earth Day, and so I think that that's captured in the language of the motion. But that's up to everybody to make a decision at this point. We'll, unless there's further discussion, I'll call for the question. Danielle, could you do a roll call vote for voting members, please?
I sure can. Let me just get that up. Okay. Anita Blackmar,
Yes.
Pat Callender,
Yes.
Valerie,
Yes.
Jane.
No.
Oh, Jane Civiletti,
Yes.
Sue Conachin,
Yes.
Dave Doback,
No.
captured that. Thank you. Mark Elliott,
Yes.
Joseph, I'll record you as an abstain. Okay. Jean Fifield, sorry. Okay, Jean might not be here. Okay, Thelma Hagen-Miller,
Yes.
Pam Horan,
Yes.
myself, I will vote yes. Gwyn,
Yes.
Paul Savis,
Aye.
Paul Savis, sorry, I didn't capture that.
Aye.
That was an aye.
Aye, yes, thank you, sorry. It's been a real long day. Fred Sawyer, I'm not seeing that Fred's still here. And a quick glance. Okay, Casey Snowberger.
Yes.
Yes. Baldwin,
Yes.
Greg Winnison,
Yes.
Suzanne Wolf,
Yes.
yes. Robert Zimmer, also not here.
No, Bob's making a motion. Thumbs up.
Oh, okay, yes. All right. And then just to be sure, I don't have Kathleen Zimmer as a voting member, but tell me if I'm wrong. Or is it Jolene? Okay. All right, so the final count is 16 yes, 1 no, 1 abstain. 18 votes total. Did I miss anyone who's here and believes they're a voting member?
Yes, I vote yes.
Oh, Rich, I'm so sorry. All right.
Awesome. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Motion passes. I appreciate the orderly vote there. and your support for that. So thanks, Wayne, for bringing that to us, and I'm glad we were able to support it. We'll move on to Suzanne. Is there an update from HDOG?
Yes, I would like to comment on two things. First of all, I would like to, on behalf of the HDOG board, thank each member of the council for your support for the festival. I think the letter that I sent to Joseph captures our gratitude. And Joseph, I don't know if you have that in front of you. If not, I can share that on the screen with everyone.
Actually, yeah, I can read it really quick because it's a little song and dance to get the screen share going.
I see.
So, Oak Grove Community Council. Historic Downtown Oak Grove would like to thank the members of the Oak Grove Community Council for their generous donation of $500 in support of the 4th annual Oak Grove Trolley Trail Festival. HDOG is thrilled to host this fun summer event in historic downtown Oak Grove, and with the support from local organizations such as ours, the community comes together to make it happen. As Mark Elliott, chair of the Trolley Trail Festival Organizing Committee, eloquently stated upon receiving the donation, I was really heartened by the support and donation members made. It says a lot about how much the fest means to people in the community. We can't thank you enough for helping to make the 4th annual Oak Grove Trolley Trail Fest a terrific success. With kind regards, Suzanne Wolf, Gary Rifkin, Kathy Wachowski, Pastor Heather, Dave Richards Oshiro, and Carol LaTourette.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Ed, for sharing that.
Thank you for the letter.
You're welcome. The second thing that I would like to bring to everyone's attention is that the hamburger franchise on McLaughlin Boulevard, it's called Five Guys. They are supporting the festival with a cash donation. And the way that they are donating is through let me restate that. So they are donating with a cash donation. They are donating 15% of their revenue of sales on the 3rd Thursday of each month, starting actually tomorrow, which is the 4th Thursday, but in April, May, and June, it will be the 3rd Thursday. And in order for 15% of their sales to be donated to HDOG, you need to go into the store or the restaurant, and you need to mention, when you place your order, you need to mention the word fundraiser. And the hours are only between 4 and 9 o'clock at night. So not all day, just in the afternoon and into the evening. So if you like to eat hamburgers and you would like to support the festival at the same time, then please consider going to Five Guys tomorrow afternoon, starting at 4 o'clock. That's it, Joseph. Thank you.
Suzanne, I'm sorry.
Excellent. Thank you for the update.
Is it that just this 3rd Thursday of every month, or
It's
just
the
tomorrow?
It's not just tomorrow, but it will be the 3rd Thursday in April, May, and June.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you.
And for those of you
Um,
wondering, that their fries are great too.
Let's see. So, Anita, do you have an update from the Parks Pack?
Yeah, just brief. Last night, Jennings Lodge CPO, without any dissent, voted for the library at the Concord site to be freestanding with the park designed to work with the library, which is basically what we voted on last month. So that means 5 out of 5 community organizations have made this same recommendation. But the work isn't done. We need to advocate now for the best design for the library, especially in terms of the energy efficiency and the sustainability levels. And we also need to look at how to maximize the size of the park and make sure it's an imaginative garden-like park that really works well with the library and that the library works with it. And related to this, Clackamas County has 2 vacancies now for the Library Advisory Board. One is for a voting member and one is for an alternate. And ideally, both the voting member and the alternate will attend and participate in the meetings. But in any case, the alternate would stay informed about library board matters. These positions have 4-year terms and the application period closes May 1st. And I'll put the link for applying in the chat. And that's it.
Excellent, thank you. I haven't seen Sue Keel here tonight, so I don't think we have an update from the Water Services District. So we'll jump into Mark. Is there anything, any updates about the Concord School Library project in addition to what Anna just said?
Yes, just briefly, and I'm going to share my screen for a second. And if you can see that all right, I'm just going to give you a quick update just to add to what Anita had to say. So I wanted to show, first of all, the 2 options that were discussed at our last task force meeting, which occurred on the 15th of the month. And so these 2 drawings identify 2 options for a detached library. One option shows the library being very close to the community center. There's about a 25-foot space between the library and the community center. And another option, which was discussed, was separating the library quite some distance from the community center to take advantage of the views and some of the topography that's located in this area. So next screen, I just wanted to give you some, what are the actions and next steps. So the task force actions included proceeding with the design options that separate the library building from the school and locating a separate library building on the site that maximizes the preservation of the parkland. And the community also asked that 2 building options be developed. One was a single-story library layout that's similar to what's illustrated in the design presentation. The other option was a 2-story library option that locates non-staff areas on a separate level of the library. The purpose of that study was to reduce the building footprint and allow for more park space and to take advantage of the existing topography or the site slope to make it easier for construction of 2 levels and to take advantage of the prevailing views to the West Hills. So from that meeting, the next steps that are taking place is that the NCPRD is going to be presenting the outcomes of the task force, the library board, the NCPRD DAC meetings to the Board of County Commissioners during an upcoming BCC policy meeting. That has not been scheduled yet. At that point, NCPRD may be asking the BCC to secure additional money to do additional design work by OPSIS in order to look at the 2-story versus single-story option. Right now, that funding does not exist. And when the county chair was asked if that money could be allocated, the chair did not agree to that. So it now has, if it's to be asked, it would have to be requested of the entire BCC board. After that, the next would be for the task force to be updated based on the BCC actions. And at this point, there is no future community meetings planned for the project. And there are some of us within the community that feel that there is a need for an additional community meeting in order for the community to be brought up to date on the project and also to have some say on some of these design options. So that's all I wanted to share on that. So happy to answer any questions or any hear any comments anyone might have.
Thelma?
I have a different thing that I want to talk about, so it's not relating to the library.
Oh, okay. Any questions for Mark before we move on? Okay, so next up will be Tom with an update from the Oak Lodge Governance Project.
Thank you, Joseph. There is some new information, sessions that are available on the Governance Project website, and I'm putting the web address for Oak Lodge Governance Project into the chat where you can find it. We have recently added 3 information sessions to the website, and those can be found under news and updates. We had one from graduate student Max Wedding, who did a study and presented on understanding the community composition of Oak Lodge since 1970. And this deals a lot with demographic changes that have occurred in this area and comparing them to the larger metropolitan area. We then had a talk by local historian Kenneth R. Coleman, who talked about racial exclusion in pre-statehood, statehood Oregon. And Joseph had mentioned the real estate limitations with racial purposes that were fairly recently operating in our area, but before our time, when Oregon was first a state, there was a time when people who were not white were not allowed to remain in Oregon. And then we have a third presentation from graduate student Alexander Nelson. Alexander did a study about the possibilities of annexing to Gladstone, and also the possibility of incorporation in our area with the service levels that Gladstone now offers. This was to round out the information that we had in our first large report, which used Milwaukee as a basis for comparing services that a new city could offer, and also looked into the details of parts of or all of Oak Lodge annexing into Milwaukee. So now we have information that is somewhat comparable about the possibility of annexation to both Milwaukee and to Gladstone, along with what incorporating as a new city with the services that each of those cities now offers would cost us here. So please take a look. And those are the 3 most recent. There are, I believe, 6 or 7 earlier information sessions as well that you can watch. And thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Tom. And then our last community update will be Mark Elliott for the Trolley Trail Fest, if there's an additional update for that.
No, I think we've got it covered so far. Thank you.
Okay. And then Thelma, I wanted to give you a chance to jump in.
Okay, this is in absence of Sue Keel. I want to make everybody aware that the BCC, the County Commissioners meeting on Thursday, April 16th at 10 a.m. We need people in the audience to raise their hand when asked for support for the authority process that the Oak Lodge Water Services District is going through. And this information will be in the CIA April newsletters. So please share and attend in person or speak virtually if you're in favor of this process. And yes, I am. Thank you.
Thanks, Delma. Anna already mentioned that there's a couple library district committees that are recruiting right now. We'll include the other committees that are recruiting right now in our follow-up email. And right now I'll just ask, are there any announcements from the floor? Okay, then our next meeting is scheduled for April 27th, and we will see you all then. So thanks, everyone. It was great to see you.
Great job, Joseph. You talked a lot, but you got it all in.
Oh man, yeah, it was a lot of talking.
Well, it's okay. There was a lot there, but good job. Stuck with it.
You want to stop recording, Valerie?